Wáhta is an important tree for us. We go back to our teachings and even look to the Wadekwa. We acknowledge the maple tree Wáhta for being the leader of the tree life. When you get out on the land and be part of this process of making syrup or maple sugar, then you get to understand why it's like that. In nature, when you look that Wáhta is the leader, it's the first tree when it's a sign of spring and that the earth is renewing itself or continuing its duties, and that with springtime coming, that it's the first sign to show that I guess nature is continuing.
I love the spring, most people hate it because it starts to turn muddy and everything. The spring means, maple season. And we head out to the sugar bush where all the trees are, and we have some lines up. We don't use the buckets anymore. So like I was saying, we've upgraded. When I first started, I had no idea what making maple syrup was. I know it came out of the tree and I know I had to boil it down. I just didn't realize how much boiling was involved. And I think the first year my wife and I, we had about a bucket of sap, and we boiled it down to maybe get a teaspoon of it, so not knowing that it would boil down that much. And we're like, we're gonna do a taffy on snow. You know how they pour it like when you go to a sugar shack, and we ended up pouring it on the snow, not knowing it had to have a certain consistency, and it seeped into the snow and it was gone. So all that work for nothing. 2022 is probably gonna be about 10 years I've been doing it now. And like I said, I've started with one single pail on one single tree, and I've upgraded here and there.
So you just drill it a little bit and there it goes. Wow.
My great uncle Nias made maple syrup, and my father always told me about it. And then, when I got old enough, I figured, let me tap a tree, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I'm up to about 50 taps a year now, and I keep wanting to grow it bigger and bigger. So it's a hobby that I've come to enjoy come springtime. I really enjoy it.
The reason I started tapping at this level or got into it was when I was a little kid. My grandfather, he started tapping when I was, just a little boy. And like my earliest memories were boiling syrup and waiting for WrestleMania in like early April. And he would always order it for us there. So it was always like the best time of the year, right? You had Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, maple syrup. It's fantastic. These woods that we're in right now, sometime in the 60s when he was ironworking, relatives of him came looking for work. So he told them, go in the woods and cut everything that isn't maple. Leave the maples, but cut everything because when I get older, I want to do a sugar bush. He was in his 60s when I was a little boy, so we only tapped maybe like 20, 30 trees close to the house, but it was all set up for it. So, when I had kids and had my own family and just staying home all the time, this time of the year, it's like, of course I'm gonna tap. I started in my yard with maybe 40, 50 taps. Next year it was 80. Next year it was 100. And then I started looking into getting tubing. And I had a lot of help. It's like a tight-knit community, I find, in the area. If you find people that speak English, I found a guy at St. Chrysostom, his name is Aaron. He's the one that installed this tubing. He helped me out a lot. Like I'd call and ask a question and he'd able to troubleshoot me through the problems I had.
So when we got started, my late husband's from Kahnawa'kehró, and he had gotten a piece of land, and on there was the maple trees, so a small maple bush. So that was something that we were excited about. So I think we had our maple or our sugar cabin almost before we had our actual house. The community and a lot of our friends, we were all excited about it, and we had help, of course, from those. I think you'll be talking to Wáhta and Gunnar later, and they helped out with some tips. And there's always people willing to share and give pointers about the best way to go about things, and of course, learning along the way.
Yeah, we've been doing it for 30 years now. Exactly 30 years. We started in '92. My father bought this land in, I think, '91, just for the purpose of making maple syrup. He traded a tractor for this land. So it worked out pretty good, but our first year was, we started in a big cast iron pot, boiled all night, all day, all night, which was fun, but it got cold and it was a little hard, keep the fire going, but when we got the syrup, it was very rewarding.
Good?
Back the finger. Let go. Okay, hold it tight.
It's a finger.
We have the blue tubing and we tap each trees and it all collects into one central container. We bring it out here. We'll probably do it once or twice a day, depending. You know, I work full time, so I probably check the bottles once a day. And come weekends, I'm checking it 2 or 3 times a day. So I know definitely I'm leaving some sap out in the ground because, you know, I can't keep up right now.
Right, so this is the main line, and these are the lateral lines that go to the trees, and you got a tap on each tree, you got your drop line, and then you got your main line, and the main line goes into the shack, into the releaser. This one is open, that's why there's nothing going on here. This one is airtight. It's about to draw off. See this seesaw? There's a float in there, kind of like the back of a toilet bowl pushing up, and it's about to do a switch over any second. When this float comes up, the water is here, and this ball goes in that basket, and that's what causes the air jam. And once the air gets in there, then the weight of the sap pushes down on the flap, and that's what you just witnessed right there. So it basically does this all day. There's no electricity. It's just all mechanical, and I think it's freaking super cool. I emptied this at about 10 o'clock this morning. It's filled up again. I got a leak here. So you spend a lot of time looking for leaks. The quickest way to find your leak is you got this lateral. I could tell there's a leak because the sap is going through real fast, and nobody likes a leaky bush. So what you got to do is push the tap back in, because we had a cold weekend, and the sap coming out of the tree will freeze and expand and push your tap out. I mean, essentially that's it. The bush is look for leaks, turn the vacuum on, empty the tank into my trailer on the back of my tractor, and every year, all these cool gadgets you're gonna see, like I didn't get this thing all at once. It was like every year I would just think of like the thing that sucks the most, sell my syrup and use the money to buy a solution to what sucked the most. pretty much have everything now. It took like 6 years. Filter press, reverse osmosis, bottler, the right trailer. The tank on that trailer was like $4,000. We're like that far away from overflowing. Now, this year and last year, it's so much easier. It's enjoyable. The first 5 years was awful. You know, it was just going to bed at midnight, 1 in the morning, waking up at 6, you know, and this, like being a waitress in a restaurant that needs 5 and nobody showed up. You know, that's what it was like, just nonstop, checking this, checking that, because I didn't have the right equipment. But now that I slowly got everything, fantastic. Once you know how to find the leaks, you can find them pretty quickly, but squirrels are usually the biggest culprit. I kill every squirrel I see and I eat it because they eat my sap, so I eat them back. Well, mostly my kids eat it. They took it to school yesterday for lunch.
We tap roughly about 150 trees, mainly because sometimes people are not here. They can't come out and help all the time. We have in the past tapped about 350 trees, and it was a little too much for us. We'd have, for a little setup we have right now, it's too much for us. Whenever we make syrup, we jar it, and then whoever's there to help just takes it home. So we don't really keep track. Like this year, I would say we made about 12 gallons. Some years are a lot better. This year, it's a little short, but I think the most we've ever made was almost 40 gallons. It is a lot of work because the snow is usually high when we're dragging the buckets through. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
Right at the start of it, before we even tap a tree or anything, we build that fire, and it's the young boys build a fire, and then we just burn tobacco and give thanks, because we see how maple and maple products are a commodity, I guess. But to really put our tobacco down and give thanks and acknowledge that, and to really connect to it. And those are the things, when you put your tobacco down, when you're part of the woods and part of this process, it's continuing those things that are part of our ways and our traditions. And part of that is, acknowledging that these things continue.
Thinking about making a sugar shack to put our version of it, a little bit of our teachings on it, like Torgoa was like, it's not just winter, but it was the Great Famine, So you think about back then, like people didn't make it. You don't call something the Great Famine because everybody gets out fine, right? Like people died, a lot of people didn't make it through the winter. But then all of a sudden, you got sugar water coming from the trees, and the first migratory birds was pigeons came. The stories were that you didn't even need a weapon, that you could just throw a rock and a pigeon would fall. So you had meat falling from the sky and sugar coming out of the trees. Imagine how exciting that is when you're on the verge of starvation. It all started with my grandfather showing me when I was 6 years old with buckets and that, and he's buried right back there too. So, this time of the year, you always feel extra close, like he's here, because he would have loved this. He was always into like gadgets and figuring out how to make things work, so this would have been like right up his alley. So when I'm here looking for leaks, that's what I think about. It's like, I know he's here, could feel him, So that's what really gets me every season, like it's the best time of the year. I can't wait to do it, is my grandfather, who's buried right over there.
It all started with my great uncle Nias, who was a condoled chief here in the Confederacy, but he tapped trees. And my older brother would tell me stories of going out there early in the morning with my father and helping him load the fire and move everything around. That man has had a lot of impact on my life. He's somebody I've never met, you know, but my father considered him a father figure, and a lot of things that I've learned, my father learned from him and were passed down this way. He was named Angus Zachary, you know, and that's the name I gave my firstborn son as well too, you know. So it's just something that I wanted to continue. And when my wife and I moved out here, we figured, you know what, we have some maple trees, let's start tapping them and let's keep going from there. And it just kind of, like I said, snowballed and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's a nice hobby that we like to enjoy, but there is, I guess, some family tradition in it as well.
It's just nice because you don't see everybody every day, and for people to come over to help you work, to learn. They bring the young ones, then you get to know the young ones and who their family is. I find if we keep this up, it'll teach the young ones how to work.
The first syrup, the first batch we make, like everybody's excited, everybody's in there. It's like controlled chaos. All right, you grab this, everything's hot, and it's just the excitement. The first one, we did it, we're on our way. Story time at night, sitting there boiling, everybody's around, coffee, just stories, you know, and then we have people coming in and out just to stop in, and you really work for it, then you get a sweet treat at the end.
There's a lot of learning to it, but it's a lot of fun. You get outside, you've been stuck in the house all winter, you know, so now get outside in the spring and just get active and have a good time with it, you know, and there's so many possibilities you can do with maple.
For us as Ungwehunwe and here in Kahnawa'kehró, you know, there's challenges with us to be able to continue making wáhta and being a part of that, because when we have all these pressures on and land loss, becomes a disconnect. But when you can just find that one tree, two trees, and that's an act of reaffirming who we are, that this is our way, this is our land. For us to continue to have a strong connection to the land, that's what keeps us Ungwehunwe, continue to be who we are as Ungwehunwe in this place where our ancestors done this for generations and generations. And that's an act of defiance. But doing those things, it's an act of reaffirming that we're still here, that we're still continuing, that we're celebrating these things that were passed on to us for generations. So that's really, it is something to celebrate for our community and for all the families who do it. And like I said, if it's one pail or two pails that you get to drink that fresh sap, that's part of your way of connecting and continuing those and having those teachings.